Spaceman. Spaceman. Why do you keep dying? Spaceman. Do you like it? Poetry's not my strong suit.
It's not a surprise to learn that Journey to the Savage Planet's creative director last worked on Far Cry 4. The two games are made broadly out of the same pieces: a lush, explorable map, some light looting and crafting, and a satirical story as the backbone to hold it all up. But where the Far Cry series has increasingly revolved around a single loop, go to map marker, shoot things at map marker, pick up loot, Journey to the Savage Planet attempts to explode that notion by using its open-ish world far more liberally. It succeeds, for a while. There's still combat, but Journey to the Savage Planet's world is also used as a platform for non-guided exploration, puzzle solving, scavenger hunts, and loads of fart jokes. Perhaps its biggest fault is that as time goes on, it feels as though it can't quite escape the inexorable gravitational pull towards combat that video games so often have, ending with a feeling of cut-price Far Cry rather than the grand science fiction experiment it could, and perhaps should have been. You wouldn't know that starting out, however. Journey to the Savage Planet opens with a comedic flourish. A pleasingly overblown FMV featuring the CEO of Earth's fourth best interstellar exploration company informs you that you've landed heavily on a planet codenamed ARY-26 that could be used to resettle our species. Your job is to explore it, catalogue its flora and fauna, and see if there's some kind of cosmic sludge lying around that you can use to refuel your ship and head home. With a certain inevitability, you soon discover that something else has visited ARY-26 before you, and your primary mission becomes to find out what it was, why it left gigantic structures all over the place, and perhaps most importantly, why it isn't here anymore. It's an intoxicating setup, prodding you into its well-conceived, if slightly low-rent pulp sci-fi world, teaching you how to get around, and then pretty much leaving you alone. There's a very broad but not unenjoyable satire at work behind all this too, showing a version of future humanity devoured and repurposed by megacorporations, which becomes just a touch ironic when you consider that the developer was bought by Google shortly before release. Initially, Savage Planet offers the literal upward momentum and bright palette of Grow Home, the slowly uncovered alien history of Outer Wilds, and the gamified taxonomy of Zelda Breath of the Wild's Sheikah Slate camera. Ultimately, all those inspirations amount to watching a series of numbers tick up, a naked quest to discover 100% of places, find 100% of the buried bits of alien technology, and see 100% of whatever the this is. That's no bad thing, however, if the pursuit of 100% is fun along the way. When Savage Planet begins, it absolutely is. I spent most of my opening hours obsessively scanning wildlife, working out what was coming out of the unidentified egg sacs I kept popping, and returning to my ship, the Javelin, to watch the Justin Roiland flavoured adverts for dystopic products that play on every screen when you walk in. I spent almost none of those hours doing what the game asked me to, and I was very rarely reminded that I should be doing something else. It was great. This isn't quite an open world game. A Metroid-esque series of upgrades have to be bought with scavenged resources in order to access new areas and biomes, but it's surprisingly self-directed. Early on, I'd ignored a mission to find an alien alloy in favour of looking for cool stuff in caves, when I came across a miniature treasure puzzle hidden beneath a labyrinth of crystalline tunnels. After I solved it, that same alloy I was meant to be looking for popped out of a chest, and my AI sidekick, Echo, congratulated me on finding it in completely the wrong place.
Amazing!
It was a moment that sold me on a concept. I could seemingly travel down the critical path by not necessarily travelling down the critical path. Sadly, the further down that path I wandered, the less that concept seemed enticing. The element I least enjoyed about those early stages was Savage Planet's approach to combat. You're given an upgradable pistol early on, but are encouraged to use it to interact with the environment just as much as pop wandering pufferbirds to see what comes out. That doesn't stay the case. The further up ARY-26's mysterious central tower you travel, the more aggressive the wildlife becomes, and the more rewards are locked behind just mindlessly shooting things. Eventually, you start finding wildlife with tiny glowing weak spots and even rote pattern-led boss fights blocking your way. Coupled with the fact that pistol upgrades are almost universally dull, and exploring certain areas becomes an overcautious chore rather than an intriguing investigation. An inbuilt co-op option helps a little, casting an online friend as a slightly grim meat buddy, but being able to finish fights more quickly doesn't quite make up for them being tedious in the first place. The upshot is that Savage Planet slowly devolves from a freewheeling muckabout in an unfamiliar kind of game world into something far more expected and far less interesting. That hopeful, experimental core never truly disappears, but it's shrouded by the need to dully clear out areas with your pistol before actually looking around them or solving their mysteries. By its final stages, that rush for 100% felt far less appealing. Journey to the Savage Planet is a game with a lot of nice ideas, trying to single-handedly twist a well-worn genre into new and exciting shapes, but it ultimately doesn't have the courage to commit to them. There's a lot to enjoy, particularly in its opening hours, but for all its grand ambitions, Savage Planet ultimately falls back on tired old ideas to see it through to an underwhelming end. Like the ship you're trying to repair throughout, it's an admirable thing, but it can't quite nail the landing. For more Savage Planet, why not check out some gameplay from the final version of the game?